What's up, friends? This is Jake J. Thomas of Jake J. Thomas Photo, bringing you another episode of the Dialogic Podcast. Happy start of summer, my friends. Today is the 21st, Solstice, the official start of summer, the longest day of the year. Beautiful sunny day here in Santa Cruz. I hope that you had some fun in the sun, got to enjoy this tipping point of the year. Like when a quarter's flipped up, it reaches its high point, then it starts to descend. We still have some very warm months in front of us, so don't fret if you're just getting used to the warm weather, the feel of the sun on your skin. Plenty more to come around here. Summer is a wild time, a chaotic time, a time of freedom, a lack of structure, and sometimes it can be a little disorienting. I just finished listening to Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday on audiobooks. And it was very, very refreshing in a lot of ways to dip into his take on the Stoic philosophers and applying that to contemporary life. The basic core concept is that the only thing you really have control over in this existence is your own behavior. And even that you have imperfect control over, but you can strive to do the most to have the most control over your own actions, your reactions, your progress, your accountability, all of those things that really, really matter. And as well as it being a helpful reminder of the importance of discipline, I felt like summer is maybe the best time to refresh one's mind about this important topic, because freedom isn't the lack of structure, it isn't the lack of direction. Freedom is the ability to choose. And sometimes it feels like being out of school, having no schedule, is the thing that makes us free. But that's only because we have certain obligations that make us adhere to a schedule. But without those obligations, without that schedule, without that structure of time, we still have obligations, we still have struggle. And really the freedom comes from embracing that fact of life and committing to the process of overcoming our own tendency to give up, to give in, to cave, to capitulate. And my favorite part of the book were some of the stories that he told and the tone. You know, he breaks the fourth wall in a lot of cases and directly addresses the reader. And he does so in an inclusive way with a lot of urgency and passion. I don't know, maybe passion isn't quite the right word, but there is a seriousness of tone, a gravity to his message, and there's urgency there. This life matters. The choices that we make have a big impact on who we are and on the people around us, the people we love. And I loved his stories about Lou Gehrig and kind of Lou Gehrig's background, his personality, the decisions that he made that led him to have such a long streak of playing games in Major League Baseball. The roads that he almost went down and the good habits that he developed instead, the toughness, the grit. Those are two characteristics of a person that I extremely admire. I like badasses. I like people who are resilient, who get back up, who don't give up. And Lou Gehrig was certainly one of those. But the book is full of stories of people who found inner strength and had resilience to not give up. And I saw some of that in person this week as I went to a Juneteenth march in Santa Cruz, organized by activist Thairie Ritchie in honor of George Floyd. And I'm of the personal belief that the Black experience in the United States is one of the most heroic narratives in human history. I'm sure that I am lacking maybe other equally harrowing and difficult and courageous challenges that people have overcome. But to begin with slavery, I think possibly the history of colonialism has created that in other forms and for other peoples. But the history of slavery creating this reality of oppression, of difficulty, of challenge, set the stage for acts of great heroism, and so we have, throughout American history, we have so many amazing people within the Black American community who have overcome impossible odds. And here in Santa Cruz, a group of organizers got together and had the police escort to march from London Nelson Center to the City Hall. And there was a boombox playing hip-hop, and the street was full of people marching with joy in their hearts. And I think that one of the things that I learned from this experience was that events that are done in response to great injustices can be done in a powerfully positive way. And let me just break it down from my own personal experience for a moment. I believe that many of us come from a place of challenge, if not all of us. I think really our humanity is about facing the challenges that confront us all. And one thing that I have learned from my experience with people, the more I get to know people, the closer I get with people, the more I understand how little I really knew about them. And so I hold back from thinking that I know about people. I'm here to learn about people. And when I share stories about people, that's just what I've learned. But I don't believe that I'm in the position to know that much about people. I am in the position to be curious, to inquire, to celebrate people. But I have been working hard to run my business and to, stay afloat in a difficult economy. And so I wanted to attend the Juneteenth rally, but I knew it was a 3-hour event. And part of me, I had an internal struggle of, is it irresponsible of me to go film, photograph participate in this event? Is it not for me? Should I just applaud from afar? You know, I'll be honest, I had a little bit of an internal struggle about it. And I thought, you know, should I just get caught up on my editing? Should I do what's going to help to put me in a better position? Well, I ended up deciding that the right thing to do was to go to be a part of it, to witness it, to document some of it if I could. And I'm so glad that I made that decision, because though I did create a lot of extra work for myself, and I'm a parent, I have my own business, it's hard for me to squeeze an extra 3 hours out of my week. But what I found was intense gratitude at the congregation of people there. And far from it being something that then weighed me down more, it was something that energized me and inspired me and made me want to share. And so I'm so glad that I made the decision to go and photograph. You can check out my Instagram if you want to see some of the photos. And I have a bunch of video of the speeches. I'm going to be putting together some audio of the very, very moving speeches. And, you know, I think there's a lot of courage to do something like that. And it's even more courageous to do it in a beautiful way, to not give in to anger, but to be defiantly hopeful. And I don't think hope gets enough credit in our culture. I think that hope oftentimes is seen as lacking in intelligence, or just being toxically positive. But I do believe that hope is a powerful choice. In the same way that love is a choice, love is an action, so is hope. And when we do hopeful things, our future becomes more possible. Among the people who had gathered to talk about the situation for BIPOC people in Santa Cruz County, as well as LGBTQ plus folks, there was a talk given by the amazing, powerful artist Abi Mustapha, a beautiful soul, an exquisite painter, one of my favorite upcoming, exploding, beautiful artists. Got to witness some of her work at the Radius Gallery not too long ago. And I highly suggest checking out her work. Check out Abi Mustapha. And she was talking about the Black Lives Matter mural that was painted on the street in front of the city hall, where this exquisite group had congregated. And she spoke about the decision to leave the mural defaced. If you don't know the backstory on that, a group of artists came together and painted Black Lives Matter in yellow on the street in front of the city hall. And two young men took a truck and X'd it out with their tires, burning rubber, drawing black lines, defacing the mural, which was, you know, a very hateful thing to do. You know, let's call it what it was. It was a hateful thing to do. But the process during the time since that's happened has been one of what sounds to me like one of reconciliation, with an attempt to get through to the young men who performed that act, and to, instead of responding with anger, being inquisitive and having a dialogue. This is, after all, the Dialogic podcast, so I celebrate when real dialogues happen. And so what could have been a tragic moment was transformed by artists into something triumphant. And so that mural is going to be repainted this weekend. And that is going to be a powerful moment for the town. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention about Juneteenth, there's so many other things. There was my good friend Irene spoke with her partner who had formed an organization for providing some health care to the women farm workers. And she spoke about growing up in, not Irene, but her partner in forming the organization, spoke about growing up in Santa Cruz County in the flats and feeling invisible and feeling like she was encouraged to be invisible, and found some comfort in that invisibility. But the segregation of Santa Cruz is an unspoken one, but very, very real and very much felt by people like her, and her courage to stand up in front of this crowd and speak into a microphone about her experiences, and then to share information about providing some very basic services to the farm workers who have the most important job in our culture, but oftentimes have the least access to the basic necessities of healthcare. That was very, very powerful, very moving, very beautiful. But the whole event ended with a dance by a group called Grupo Campo, who were native peoples who performed this amazing dance with two guitar-like instruments, a large drum, and then beads that were attached to their feet, so that when they walked, when they moved their feet, it shook. And it was just inexplicably powerful and beautiful. There was something so harmonic about this driving rhythm and this insanely catchy tune. It was as though I'd heard it 100 times before. It was so easy to follow. It was just this beautiful, natural, soulful song. And seeing these folks perform it really gave me the chills. Because back to the heroism of the Black American experience, the heroism of Native peoples to live through historical tragedies and to retain cultural traditions and to fight their way out of very, very difficult situations to a place where they're floating through this dance in front of the city hall, surrounded by people who are there intently witnessing this powerful, powerful song and dance being played before them. It was such a triumphant moment. It was really, really powerful. So I really suggest looking up Grupo Campo and finding out more about them, because it was honestly one of the most powerful musical experiences of my life. And all in all, this event was, to me, the best event I've ever been to, period. It was just beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was free. It was freeing. And I just want to really honor Thairie Ritchie and all of the other organizers who participated, all of the people who spoke. It was really, really something that I learned from. And my gratitude is as sincere as it could possibly be. And I believe that it was a beautiful way to start off summer. I think that that is wonderful, that that is now a federal holiday. And I look forward to seeing what happens next year and seeing how it grows and evolves. And this was just such a beautiful beginning. I can only imagine where it could go. So the longest day of the year, summer solstice, reminds me of how much balance there is in our existence. After coming out of a very stormy, dark winter, more rain than we've had in 40 years, there were so many times during that period of storms that felt there was no other real way to describe it than supernatural. Even though it was a natural occurrence, it was the weather, it was our environment doing what it does, it felt as though it were like something mythological, like there were gods out there blowing wind and rain in our direction. And that's what that beautiful book by Zora Thurston refers to in the title. Their eyes were watching God. Their eyes were watching the storm come in. And that was what it felt like this winter. But now here we are, this beautiful other part of the year, the peak, the top of the arc, the longest day. And it reminds me of how comedy and tragedy go together and balance each other out and are both so necessary to our existence. And comedy, I don't believe either one is more important, but comedy, I believe, teaches us how to live together. And tragedy teaches us about the inevitability of death and how to face it and what that means. Summer is also a time for exploring the great outdoors, for clear skies at night, fog sometimes in the morning. But I'm looking forward to doing some astrophotography this year. The Milky Way is now in view, and I'm looking forward to going out there and getting some long exposures of these galaxies that we have in view of us. The longest day of the year, people observed at Stonehenge. I had the great privilege of going there when I was a young lad, when I was 20, I think, 19 or 20. And there's something really, really eerie about those druidic stones, inexplicably arranged, impossibly propped up in a calendar formation that tracks the movement of the stars and the sun. And humans have been paying attention to the stars for so long it only seems right to continue that tradition, to go out and study the stars, to wonder what lies beyond, and to imagine. You know, I'm wearing my Barney shirt, and Barney is one of the artists who inspires me the most, partly for his combination of the tragic and the comic, but also for his love of UFOs and aliens and the ancient alien artifacts that Stonehenge and the pyramids are. So I'll be thinking about Barney today, and I'll be honoring him when I go out to photograph the stars. Another strange happening right during this time when the year turns is another realm of discovery. You know, there's so many different theories about alien life forms and if they've visited us and where they might be. And one of the more exciting and fun theories, I believe, is that they are hiding underwater, deeper than we can get to. And there's a harrowing journey underway. I hope it ends without the loss of lives. But at this point, it seems to be getting less and less likely that the people aboard the Titan, a submersible vehicle that went down to explore the Titanic, will return with humans alive. Some of the details of this adventure are so terrifying in a way, as all great exploration is, because it means going so far beyond the realm of safety. You know, it's like when that feeling of exposure and exposure to danger is something that humans have had to steel themselves against and become accustomed to in order to make these huge leaps to the moon. You know, when you think about an astronaut doing a walk outside of the ship, tethered to the ship with all of empty space surrounding them to work on the space station, to work on the ship, there's something so terrifying about that feeling of exposure. But equally terrifying is this image of the Titan sinking for 8 hours to reach the depths where the Titanic rests, and the sad, horrifying experience of the people inside who we lost contact with. And now we don't know what they're doing, but they're running out of air, and the people involved are surely going through more terror than we can even imagine. But there's something to be admired in that spirit of exploration, even if sometimes it has these terrifying moments, and even though it results sometimes in the loss of life. I believe that instinct in us, although it is closely coupled to the instinct to dominate, to conquer, I think the good side of that spirit of exploration is something that we have within us that is in defense of the earth. And while there may be a certain amount of hubris involved in climbing Mount Everest, in racing to land on the moon, in trying to visit the Titanic, there's also something that is self-aware, the desire to be more self-aware, this spirit of discovery and exploration. So I hope that those folks make it back safely and that they can tell their story. And I hope that the aliens didn't get them. But one never knows what happened until the story returns. And one of the things I've been thinking about recently is this concept from English literature, given the phrase by one of the great romantic poets, a poet who died at 25, but changed the English language forever. That poet would be John Keats. And the concept is, to me, the most important concept in art theory to date. And there may not be anything that could ever surpass it. And that concept is called negative capacity. Negative capacity is the ability to be in the presence of the unknown and to remain undecided. When we don't know things, so often we leap to conclusions. We make up our minds before we have enough information. But the negative capacity is the artist's greatest tool. It's where all invention comes from. Because if we knew, there would be no need to invent. There would be no need to explore. There would be no need to know more. In the space of the negative, of not knowing, is where all great ideas, phrases, songs, gestures, colors come from. Artistic invention springs out of negative capability. I recently had the opportunity to go and interview, speaking of comedy and tragedy and the English language and creativity, I got to go visit the folks up at Santa Cruz Shakespeare. I'm writing an article or a series of articles about the 2023 season, and I couldn't be more excited about what is happening up there. And just being there for a day got me so buzzed with that thing, that magic, that feeling that you can only get from live theater. And I got to interview Charles Pasternak and Mike Ryan, who are co-starring in the Book of Will, and they are the co-artistic directors of this season. I'll be sharing much more about it when I write those articles, but the brief thing I wanted to mention today is that Mike Ryan saved this company. It used to be Shakespeare Santa Cruz, and in 2013, the university canceled its next season. But Mike Ryan refused to accept defeat and began immediately taking action to raise funds to continue the next season, which he did. And because of his actions, the company survived and grew even stronger and is now in its best position it's ever been in. At the Grove Theater at the North de la Viega Park by the golf course, just past the clubhouse, in a grove that overlooks the ocean, blocked by eucalyptus trees, but you can feel the ocean. It's right there. You can smell the ocean, and you're in this beautiful sunny hilltop that they found the new home for Santa Cruz Shakespeare. And I got to interview Mike during his last year as artistic director, as he hands over the company to Charles Pasternak, who is an incredibly charming, intelligent, and good-natured person. And the two of them together were so fun to talk to, and it was so uplifting. They really embodied the spirit of theater to me, and the best parts of it, especially the comedic aspects of it, that levity, that hopefulness, that optimism, that buoyancy. And they are co-starring in The Book of Will, a play written by Lauren Gunderson on the 400th anniversary of the publication of Shakespeare's Folio, which is the complete collection of Shakespeare's plays. And two actors, after Shakespeare passed away, he went to retire after a very productive career of writing plays. He caught the flu and he died very quickly, very unexpectedly, and hadn't put together, maybe wouldn't have put together, a collection of all the plays. But two of the actors did. And so this play, The Book of Will, written by Lauren Gunderson, chronicles that story. And Mike and Charles play the two actors who saved Shakespeare's works. And so there's this meta-theatrical component to the play where Mike Ryan saved Shakespeare Santa Cruz by transforming it into Santa Cruz Shakespeare, and Charles Pasternak is going to continue that legacy of summer theater festivals. And they're co-starring in The Book of Will. When I was in college, I came home one summer and auditioned to be an intern at what was then Shakespeare Santa Cruz. And that was when I met Mike Ryan. It was in 1998, and I was in the play Othello, and he was in the play as well. It was his second year with the company. And so it was really, really fun to get to talk to him again now, after he has done so much for the company. You know, and that was really just quite surreal in the most positive way imaginable. But the interns also get to put on a play, and this year it will be Exit Chased by a Bear, another play by Lauren Gunderson. The three main plays Santa Cruz Shakespeare is putting on this year are The Book of Will, The Taming of the Shrew, and King Lear. Now, The Taming of the Shrew is one of my favorite comedies, and it is really, really funny, and it's really, really thought-provoking. And I can't wait to see it. But King Lear is one of the great tragedies. And I was so excited to learn that Paul Whitworth is starring as King Lear. Because during that summer when I was an intern with then Shakespeare Santa Cruz, Paul Whitworth played Iago in the play Othello. And I absolutely fell in love with his acting. He was such a consummate professional actor. I was just blown away by his ability to handle the language, his ability to bring the right energy to the role. I couldn't be happier than to have had the opportunity to interview him. And boy, oh boy, what a treat that was. I met him. He looked at me and he said, "Do I know you?" I couldn't believe it. And yes, he does know me. He did know me. And he made such an impact on me when I was still just a young man. And he made a huge impact on me now, just interviewing him about King Lear. And so I couldn't be more excited about the season this year at Santa Cruz Shakespeare. Santa Cruz Shakes on Instagram. Check them out. Buy your tickets. They're going to sell out. And don't miss out. Don't miss out on this year's season. It is truly going to be a fun and energetic, thought-provoking trio of plays with the fourth fringe play, Exit Chased by a Bear. I'm going to see all of them. I hope you get the opportunity to as well. And yeah, it's one of those great Santa Cruz events. You know, you go up there, have a picnic. The picnic area overlooks the ocean. It's the least stuffy theater experience you could ever imagine. You're outside for one thing, and it is truly a magical experience. So I have so much to write about it. You know, the interviews, what these amazing actors had to say was so moving. I'm only barely scratching the surface here now. So look for that article in the Sentinel. And I'll also be publishing stuff on my blog. I did a video interview with them, so we'll be checking that out as well. In honor of Barney, one of the things I wanted to think about today too during this podcast is one of the great Santa Cruz qualities in our art world. I've never seen the Santa Cruz art world in a better position than it is now. I feel like we have so many brilliant creatives working here. But one of the things that Santa Cruz has had for a long time and continues to have is an amazingly vital kinetic art scene. Surfing, skateboarding, and dance. These movement-based activities that express something entirely ineffable about the human condition, whether it's the power surfing, Eden Edwards hacking a lip of a wave, whether it's Emmanuel Guzman fighting through a trick that he wants to do that has a difficulty level beyond what most mortal humans could ever even imagine. I mean, what skateboarders and what surfers do is technically so difficult and dangerous, and they do it with style and beauty, and it is just the most powerful thing I can imagine. And dance as well. We have so much dance in this county, and I think that they all are equally courageous and very, very cool to be around. So I just wanted to give a shout out to all of the amazing surfers and skateboarders and dancers in this town. And, you know, I hope that you stay progressing along the path that you want to. And I hope that there is enough support for these activities to evolve into something that sustains the people who are involved in them. You know, I think I wrote a blog about Barney called Pray for Surfers. And I think that is such a powerful title because it's the same for skateboarders. But when I think about some of the people I've interacted with and the lengths that they've gone to do what they do to inspire us, even if they're not doing it to inspire us, it does inspire us. And the prices that they have to pay are quite considerable. And I think that we should find a way to make, in a way I feel like this is like the early days of the NFL, where the general public we haven't evolved to the point where we're taking care of the athletes, the artists who do these things. And there should be some sort of path to an evolution of their career. But anyways, that's just my 2 cents about those activities that I love and admire so greatly. Next thing I wanted to talk about is an epiphany that I had earlier this year about, and it's not something that is new exactly, but sometimes epiphanies just take something old and show you in a new way. But basically, It's about the virtuous cycle of education. Because right now there's kind of a vicious cycle that's happening that's dragging us down. And the only way that we overcome that is by investing in education. And that means putting money into the schools, funding teachers, after-school programs, and really, really making the education of our children the highest priority. It's the one thing we can do that will fix all the other things. Mental health and mental fitness are coexisting, intertwined, and good education will help both of those. People will be smarter, better able to make good decisions, which will lead them into better outcomes, which will then create a better likelihood of positive mental health. And so I really am trying to figure out how to make that my top priority, besides supporting my daughter in her path of education. I've decided I want to get back into education, and I'm not sure exactly how I will yet. And then beyond that, I want to push to make education our top priority in Santa Cruz County, in the state of California, in the United States, and then beyond. When we decide to put education first, our future will become much, much more bright. And I don't just mean education from a science and mathematics standpoint, but I mean art as well. The food for imagination, providing the platform for people's creativity. We're in an era where artificial intelligence is becoming more and more prevalent. And the idea that that's going to replace our jobs is something that even the people who created the artificial intelligence are warning our politicians that this may be an extinction level threat on par with nuclear weapons and pandemics. So we better take this seriously. And the only antidote to artificial intelligence is education. When we educate our people adequately, when we put education first and make it the most important, we will be able to adapt to anything that comes our way. Anything that we create, we'll be able to control. But as it is right now, I don't believe that the people in Congress understand technology enough to know how to put guardrails up for artificial intelligence. They don't even understand the internet or social media. So how are they going to deal with the hazards that artificial intelligence poses to humanity? They're not going to, but they don't have to, because we need to do it ourselves, and we need to achieve that capability through education. And so I plan to dedicate myself to that as a part of my mission. And I always believe and have believed that art and education go hand in hand. There is no art without education, and art always has an educating component to it. Beginning with the cave paintings, there was the externalization of thought. There was the creation of symbolic imagery. There was a way to tell stories, a way to put things in context, to think about them before and after they've happened. It is the origin of history. History begins with making marks, writing, keeping records, debating. And the allegory of the cave by Plato is a story about education. And really, it's a message to teachers that understanding is only the beginning. Seeing the light is just the starting process. And there's a warning to teachers there, that thinking that because you've seen something more true, that gives you any kind of power. No, you still have to interact with other humans, and understanding their judgment is key to being able to bring in some elements of what you've learned. And so the cave painting, the allegory of the cave, it's where we come from. It's where we've begun, and it's what we need to focus on moving forward. The inextricable nature of art and education. Art is a form of research, is a form of exploration. Again, that negative capability that Keats talked about. That's what we have to take to design new modalities of being in the presence of great risks that we face, whether that be climate change, pandemics, military conflict, artificial intelligence. We have to develop the strength of mind to deal with those situations. And there is a thrill of intellectual challenge and growth. When one is progressing, there's something so vital about that process and those moments when you know something you didn't know before. And I see it all the time with my own child as she learns and she becomes proud of her ability to know. Her discernment, when it grows stronger, she becomes happier. And that's what education can do. It can empower us. And so we should put it first, and we should put everything we have behind it. It is the lever of progress. Education is the only force that can help us make this transition into the next age. Next historical age, as history is the all-encompassing medium that life exists within. All religions exist within history. Scientific discoveries happen historically. Everything that has been and will be exists within the realm of the historic. And there's a positive feedback loop. There's a loop back that can happen. And it doesn't mean, progress doesn't always mean something new. Fitness doesn't always mean being strong. I had the great privilege to take my daughter to go see 2 films screened up at UCSC that were part of the documentary, the social documentary program in the visual art program there. And the first film was called The Bicycle Island, and it was about Cuba. It was in Spanish and it had subtitles, and my daughter was able to follow along, shaming so many undergraduates I've seen before, or just people who wouldn't watch a film because of its subtitles. She was enwrapped and studied every word and followed every character. And it was so pleasing to me to see her. And I wouldn't even have expected it, and I could never take credit for it. She's an extraordinary person. But one of the things from that film that really stuck out to me, there were so many things. It was beautifully shot. The island of Cuba has so many picturesque parts to it, from beginning with the people, but then there's the ocean, there's the streets, there's the buildings, there's the classic cars, and there are the bicycles. But there's a group of young intellectuals talking about how the government had tried to create bicycles as a solution to the petrol shortage during the 90s, and that then they kind of let that go when it wasn't needed anymore. But they were debating how to bring the bicycle back into a prominent position culturally. And the quote that I remember that stood out to me that I found to be so eloquent and powerful was that the future may be the bicycle, and it came long ago. So there's this idea in history that history isn't always forward moving, but it loops back. And the thing that we may need the most, we may already have. So it might not be the next great invention, but it might be the right application of something that's already old. And then that meditation on that idea in that film, I found to be so powerful. And the next film was equally exquisite. It was a film about motherhood and a celebration of the filmmaker's mother during her pregnancy. And I was just so happy. My daughter was such a good audience member and stood up and gave a standing ovation and screamed her applause and didn't want to leave, but we had to go. It was a school night and she needed to get back to bed. But she has gone to 2 events up at UCSC with me, and because of that, she's fallen in love with college at 9 years old. And so I know that it's possible that given the right experience, there's a natural inclination towards wanting to know more, towards the thrilling, the exhilarating thrill of learning and intellectual growth. And so with that, I'm coming to the end of my hour. I'm going to be doing more podcasts because there's a generative quality to doing these that helps me to organize my thinking, and hopefully it gives you some food for imagination and for thought as well. Maybe you'll look up John Keats, The Negative Capacity. Maybe you'll look up Grupo Campo, find out when they're going to do their next dance. Maybe you'll look up Thairie Ritchie, figure out how you can support him in his next organizing efforts, or just attend and be thrilled by the beauty of this movement. And while you're at it, maybe look up this video series I've been working on called People of Santa Cruz, which I've been learning a lot from and practicing my interview skills as well as videography and portraiture. And I think that it's one of the most interesting experiences I've had as an artist is to go out on the street and find people to participate in this portrait project, and then to see how they respond to my questions, the pattern of their speech, the content of their answers. And it's really taken my portraiture to another level. So check that out on Jake J. Thomas Photo on Instagram and Facebook, jakejthomasphoto.com on the internet. You can reach me at jakejthomasphoto@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. What are you thinking about? What are you up to? And any ideas you might want to throw my way, I am open to listening. So with that, I want to just extend a hand of applause to the people who were involved in the Juneteenth event, to share my enthusiasm for the upcoming season at Shakespeare Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz Shakespeare. It's hard for me to even understand how UCSC could have allowed that wonderful program to leave and to become their own thing that is Santa Cruz Shakespeare. But hopefully I'll have a lot more contact with them in the coming years as I write plays and participate with them in whatever capacity I can. But check out Santa Cruz Shakes on Instagram. Check them out online. Santa Cruz Shakespeare. It's going to be a tremendous season, a theatrical festival not to be missed. So till next time, this is Jake J. Thomas with another episode of the Dialogic Podcast. Peace.